Hey out there, thank you for waiting on me as I did my little dance. Hey, it's Dr. Tamara, aka the Comeback Queen, and I am coming to you today to talk about something that is so very serious. I get so many questions, and I hope all of you are doing well. This channel is all about empowerment, about living courageously, about letting go of things that you need to let go of, about living your authentic life and living without regret. So, today we are talking about something that is so serious and that I work with clients a lot on. A lot of questions come up around setting boundaries. So, we're going to jump right in today and learn how to set some healthy boundaries. Boundaries are things that we use to protect ourselves, to protect our loved ones, just to protect our own egos so that we don't dance into things that we shouldn't be dancing with and in. So I think this is going to be a real good opportunity for you to do some learning and some evaluating on how it is that you operate and move in your life. So welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Certainly hit the bell, like me, follow me, all those great things that everyone says on YouTube. You know what to do. And so I'm coming to you today to talk about tips for setting healthy boundaries. And so, what does that look like? We all should be setting boundaries in our life. Otherwise, we're saying yes to everything. We're allowing things to come into our pathway that we need to let go of or not to accept. And so, just begin to think about the things that are in your pathway that aren't serving you well, that you're tolerating. People, places, things. I'm always talking about that. People, places, and things we need to set boundaries for and on. There are certain people that we need to set boundaries with, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. There are certain places that perhaps cause us some distress, and we shouldn't even be in that arena, right? And some things that are going on that we need to set boundaries for. So listen, hey, if it's you, it's okay because we're all there from time to time where we need to reflect and look at some of these boundaries that we're dealing with, people. Come on now. Let's get going. So listen, as we jump in, first of all, you need to know what your limits are. First of all, what are your limits? Have you ever asked yourself, what are my limits? On a certain scenario. It has to be something that really pushes your buttons. How much longer am I going to tolerate this? Um, just things that come in your pathway. You know what I'm saying? Those things that really irritate you, but then you're saying yes when you really want to say no. And so those are the things that you need to set a boundary on, really knowing your limits. Knowing yourself, here's an opportunity for you to jump in and really know yourself. That's one of the first things that you need to learn is when you know yourself, then you begin to unravel and know what those limits are. Because boundaries are basically setting limits in your life. How far will you go? Just like when you're raising children, you have limits for them. I've told you to make up your bed, or I've told you to wash your clothes, or the limit of you need to be in at a certain time. So think about when you were a kid and what the consequences were for not keeping the limits and the boundaries in the household. So think about that in regards to people, places, and things in your life. What are the limits? I know I've worked with many people who have really gotten into some relationship issues because there really was no boundaries set on how far people can go and what kind of tones that people have with you and what kind of language are people using with you. Think about that, people. What are your limits? It's all about what you want. Remember, this is a channel that talks about living your best and your blessed life and living the life that you love. And we all need to protect ourselves by having some limits in our life. Like, how much chocolate cake am I going to eat? How many cookies am I going to grab? How many drinks am I going to have? Because that's a whole nother scenario that gets people into abusive situations when they're drinking too much, eating too much, and then find themselves also in abusive relationships that just keep going on and on and on. And my goodness, that's a whole nother topic for me to talk about later. Because remember, I told you that I wear two hats, that I'm a clinical therapist and a life coach. So I see and talk to people about a lot of different things, talk about it, teach on it, that kind of thing. So when you know your value, how are you feeling about yourself? Because when you're feeling low, usually is when the balances and the limits and the boundaries aren't even in place. But you are the person in charge of your life, that you have to set those limits, where you set those boundaries so that you can teach people how to treat you, because people will treat you how you allow them to treat you, people. I'm just telling you what I know. Let me repeat that. People will treat you how you allow them to treat you. That's why we have to have limits and boundaries in our life. And these are words that are interchangeable, limits and boundaries. We normally say setting boundaries or setting limits. Same thing. So when you listen to your emotions and you find that you're feeling some kind of way about maybe something someone said or didn't do, when that ache comes in your body, when your shoulders get tight, when you may get a headache behind something, when that is off center. And that's a time where a limit or a boundary needs to be set in place. I need to talk with you about this. You can't, raise your voice at me. No, I'm only going to have one piece of cake or one piece of chicken. There's a boundary. There's a boundary in how you talk to me. There's a boundary on what I'm going to accept in a relationship. That is a big one, and I want you to really hone in on that. What are you going to accept in a relationship? So I get these questions all the time. I'm working with people around setting boundaries, and these are some of the steps: knowing yourself, knowing your value. People, you are valuable. You are a VIP in God's eyes. And you're a VIP in your family. My assumption would be that you have loving people that care about you, and they're counting on you to be healthy and well. Yes, they are. So let's narrow down on these boundaries. It's okay to say no when you don't want to do something. It's okay to say yes when you're open to it. It's okay to be honest with those people in your pathway, because we want to be respectful to people when we're setting our boundaries. Having that conversation about what the boundary is. Look, we're going to get this kitchen cleaned up, and all the dishes need to be done by X amount of time. Okay, kids, dishes need to be done. Clothes need to be washed on Saturday by noon. I don't know what your boundary is, but I know that boundaries are developed to make our lives run smoother. And that's exactly what we need to be putting in place. It's okay to tell a child that they have to get something done by a certain time. Come on now. I was an educator and I saw lots of kids who had no boundaries, and they came to the school with no boundaries. And you already know the scenario from there. So listen to your emotions. When you're not feeling some kind of way about something, that may be a time to set up a boundary in your space. Because we all should have personal spaces, personal time to be with ourselves. You know, I know I used to teach my children, and I've heard this before, hey, don't knock on the door unless the place is burning down, that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's just in jest and fun, but your personal boundaries, not allowing that to take place, precedence over what it is that you really feel. Like I have a client recently going through a divorce who, the boundary was, infidelity. And then that was brought into the marriage. And so the boundary was set, that person said, I don't do infidelity in my relationship. and had marriage. This was a man who said, "Hey, I'm out." Setting that boundary, saying, "I'm not going back, and I want to keep that type of boundary in my future relationships." So think about that. I've worked with people who've been abused. That's a straight boundary right there. Whatever the abuse is, we don't tolerate that, and I'm not going to accept it. So that's listening to your emotions and then being assertive about the decision you've made. That's your next step. Be assertive. What am I going to do at this point? Now I'm going to stand up for myself because I value me. I'm going to stand up because I value myself. And when you value yourself, then you're going to set that boundary. It may be hard, especially when it's people you care about or a boss, but somewhere you've got to find the courage from within to say, "Hey, can't do this. I need to set this boundary. And I'm doing it for my well being. I can sleep at night. It lessens the anxiety, it lessens stress. Setting boundaries in your life will be a lifesaver for you in the end." So remember, we said knowing your limits, knowing your value, your personal value, listening to your emotions, being assertive, and then be respectful to those that you need to set boundaries where the boundary really um, involves someone. Sometimes they're just my own boundaries. Like, okay, I've had one piece of chocolate cake and I know I don't need another one. I don't need to talk to anybody about it. But if it affects and it involves someone else, then I need to be courageous enough to talk to that person. We don't operate in fear, we operate with courage. That is where we need to sit here, coming up with that courage to have that time and that conversation with someone so that you're respecting yourself as well as them. And then the long haul, if we look down the road, how is this boundary and going to help me in my future? It's going to help you to be a better person. You're going to consider the long view because there are many people that don't have boundaries. But when you begin to set these boundaries, you're going to set yourself free indeed. Because once you start that road, you're going to have boundaries coming throughout your life. It's just making that first step of looking at the long view. How do I want my life to operate? Do I want to be in control of my life, or do I just want the whims of life to hit me? It's kind of up to you. You're like, which way do you want to go with it? Which way do you want to go, people? Which way do you want to go? So, just considering the things I've shared, definitely wanting the best for everybody here. I mean, I am excited about being in this space, in this channel. I love teaching, I love helping. This is what I was born to do. This is living out my purpose. So, I hope that you found these tips helpful. You certainly can follow me, chat with me below, and I look forward to bringing you some other tips. Thank you for coming on today and have a wonderful day. Remember what I always say, you got to get up off of that sofa. You got to get up off of that sofa in order to do the things that we just talked about doing, of having a life with healthy boundaries. All right, signing off, Dr. Tamara at your service, and we'll see you soon. Take care.